The little girl said, "Sir, my mom didn't come home last night." The CEO followed her into the snow. The wind howled through the narrow streets like a warning, a bitter winter morning that was dark, quiet, and merciless. Snowflakes blew sideways in the icy air, stinging like needles. Shops remained shuttered, sidewalks empty, and thick gray clouds hung low over the town. 6-year-old Ella Morgan wandered alone through the snow. She wore a faded red dress beneath a worn, puffy coat too thin for the biting cold. Her boots were soaked through, and her little feet trembled with every step. Her brown hair, tied in a crooked ponytail, clung to her cheeks stiff with frost, and her lips were pale, her hands numb. She had been walking for hours since the first hint of light touched the horizon, constantly looking and hoping. Her mother, Scarlet Morgan, had not come home the night before, something that had never happened before. Scarlet worked the night shift at a factory just outside town. No matter how tired, she always returned before sunrise to kiss Ella's forehead always. But not today. Ella went to the factory first, then to the bus stop by the woods. There was no one, just silence, snow, and wind that made her eyes water. Her teeth chattered as she whispered to herself, "Mommy always comes home. She always does." She remembered something her mom once said during their bedtime chats. "If you're ever scared, find a kind adult or go to the big house on the hill. The man there is nice." Ella had never been there, but she'd seen its lights warm and steady from far away. Now, with nowhere else to go, she turned toward it. The hill was steep, her legs burned, and her breath came in short, painful gasps. She climbed, clutching her little backpack against her chest as the mansion appeared through the snow like something from a fairy tale. It featured tall iron gate stone walls wrapped in white and pine trees creaking in the wind. Ella reached the gate, unsure what to do. She looked up at a small camera above the post. Did it see her? Did it matter? A gust knocked her sideways and she barely caught herself. Her breath came out in clouds. Her legs ached. She couldn't think anymore. She sat down, curling up in front of the gate, arms around her knees, head tucked in. A loud flutter overhead, a crow bursting from a branch, made Ella flinch. She tried to stand, but her legs gave way and she collapsed into the snow. Then a soft click. The gate opened and a tall man stepped out. 38-year-old Ethan Caldwell wore a long black coat and a gray scarf. His sharp jawline and intense gaze gave him a commanding presence. In one hand, he held a leather briefcase, headed for an early meeting, until he saw her, a tiny girl, crumpling into the snow. He dropped the briefcase. "Hey!" he called out, sprinting toward her. "Sweetheart!" Ella fell forward, but Ethan reached her just in time, catching her before she hit the ground. He knelt beside her, wrapped his coat tightly around her, shielding her from the biting wind. "Hey, can you hear me?" She stirred faintly. Her small hand grasped his jacket, and she whispered, barely audible, "Sir, my mom didn't come home last night. I'm looking for her." Then her hand went limp and her eyes fluttered shut. Ethan's heart kicked. He scooped her up, holding her close. She was feather-light, ice-cold. He raced back through the gate. "Call the doctor," he shouted to the staff. "Turn on the fireplace now." Inside, warmth radiated from the grand hearth. He laid her gently on a plush sofa near the fire. Her coat slipped open, and her small backpack slid off, landing beside her with a soft thud. Ethan crouched and opened it, hoping for ID. Inside were torn gloves, a crumb-filled lunchbox, and a folded sheet of paper. It was a child's crayon drawing of a blonde woman holding hands with a small girl under a sun. He stared at it, then whispered more to himself than anyone. "Where is your mother? And why were you alone in that storm?" He didn't know it yet, but that morning a little girl collapsing in the snow would change the course of his entire life. Warmth. That was the first thing Ella felt when she opened her eyes. A soft golden glow flickered nearby firelight. The smell of cinnamon and cedar filled the room, unfamiliar but comforting. She blinked her eyes, adjusting to the elegant furnishings. A high ceiling, shelves full of books, a fireplace with dancing flames, and a thick blanket pulled up to her chin. A man was sitting beside her. He wasn't exactly smiling, but his eyes had softened. The sharpness she'd seen through the snow was gone. In its place was quiet concern. He was holding a steaming mug. "You're awake," he said gently. "That's good. You gave us a bit of a scare." Ella shifted slightly, her small hands clutching the blanket. She didn't speak. The man held out the mug. "It's just warm water, no pressure." She took it carefully, her fingers still trembling. "I'm Ethan," he added, his voice calm and even. "You're safe now. Can you tell me your mother's name?" Ella hesitated, then whispered, "Her name is Scarlet Morgan." He nodded slowly. "Do you know where she works?" Ella's gaze dropped to her lap. "At a big place with noisy machines. She goes there when it's dark, and then she always comes home." Her voice cracked on the last word. Ethan's expression shifted. Something sharp flickered across his features. Scarlet Morgan. The name rang a distant bell. He stood, walked across the room, and returned with his phone. His fingers moved quickly across the screen. He turned slightly to glance at Ella. "That big place, does it have lots of lights at night?" Ella nodded. "And do the people wear vests, hats?" She nodded again. Ethan's stomach twisted. There were dozens of facilities under Caldwell Industries, but only a few that ran overnight production lines near this part of town. "I think I know where your mom works," he said quietly. Ella's lip trembled. "Did I mess something up? I'm sorry I came to your house." Ethan crouched down to her level. "No," he said firmly. "You reminded me what matters." He stood again, already dialing. Within minutes, his head of HR was on the line. "Scarlet Morgan, can you check employee records for the Holden facility?" he asked. There was a pause. "Yes, sir. She's registered as a line worker scheduled on the night shift yesterday." "Did she clock out?" Another pause. "No log of her clocking out, sir." "No one reported her missing?" "No, sir. It's possible she left without checking out or stayed behind." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Find the shift manager on duty now." He ended the call and turned to his assistant, who was already standing at the door. "Prepare the car. We're going to the Holden plant." The assistant nodded. "Should I arrange security for her?" Ethan asked, nodding toward Ella. "She comes with us and makes sure she's warm and comfortable." Ella blinked up at him, surprised. "I can come." "You're the one who started this," he said with a soft smile. "I think you deserve to help finish it." Outside, the sky remained heavy and white, but the snow had eased into a soft fall. As they rode in the black SUV through the winding roads, Ella curled against the plush seat, wrapped in a new coat that someone had found in the guest closet. Her little hands held the hot chocolate they brought for her in a travel cup. Ethan watched her in the rearview mirror. She was so small, so brave, a child who had walked through a snowstorm just to find her mother, something most adults would never dare. He turned his eyes forward, his jaw tight, a new resolve setting in. If his company had played a part in a woman's disappearance, if no one had noticed because she was just another worker on the night shift, that was going to change. And it would start tonight. The Holden facility looked even colder than the winter air outside. Steel walls, flickering fluorescent lights, and the rhythmic pounding of machinery echoed like a distant war drum. Inside, workers moved in silence, faces pale and weary, eyes fixed downward. No one spoke, no one noticed, no one questioned. That is, until the black SUV pulled up outside. Ethan Caldwell stepped out, his long coat brushing the ground, Ella close behind, under the watchful care of his assistant. The plant supervisor rushed forward, confusion etched on his face. "Mr. Caldwell, we weren't expecting—" "No," Ethan said sharply. "You were not." He strode past them, each step firm and fast, cutting through the metallic air. His voice echoed down the corridor. "I need the employee rest area now." People turned. Whispers followed him like ripples in still water. The supervisor fumbled with keys. "It's through here, sir, but I don't think—" Ethan didn't wait. He pushed open the door. The room inside was barely more than a storage closet, a bench, a vending machine, a row of lockers, and a woman on the floor. "Mommy!" Ella screamed, running forward before anyone could stop her. Scarlet Morgan lay curled near a locker, one arm tucked beneath her, her skin pale as the snow outside. Sweat clung to her forehead, her breaths were shallow and uneven. Ethan rushed in and knelt beside her. "She's burning up," he muttered, placing the back of his hand on her cheek. "Call an ambulance." "No, bring the car. We'll get her there faster." Gently he gathered Scarlet into his arms. She stirred only slightly, eyelids fluttering, lips dry and cracked. As he carried her out of the factory, workers stepped aside, eyes wide. No one had even noticed she was missing. Ella walked beside them, trying to hold on to her mother's limp hand. At the hospital, the news hit hard: exhaustion, severe hypoglycemia, dehydration, and sleep deprivation. "She's lucky," the doctor said gravely. "If she had stayed unconscious another hour, we might be talking organ failure." Scarlet was admitted immediately. While she slept, Ethan and Ella waited by her side. The little girl curled up in the visitor chair, finally asleep, her tiny fingers wrapped around her mother's. Ethan remained seated, elbows on his knees, staring at the woman in the hospital bed. So this was Scarlet Morgan, the woman who raised a daughter gentle enough to knock on a stranger's gate in the snow. The woman who gave everything and nearly lost her life to keep her child safe. Hours later, Scarlet stirred. Her eyelids fluttered. She groaned softly, then turned her head and saw Ella. "Sweetheart." Her voice was hoarse. Ethan leaned forward. "You're at Memorial Hospital. You passed out, but you're safe now." Scarlet blinked, then tried to sit up. No, I have to get back. They'll fire me." "You're not going anywhere," Ethan said firmly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You need to rest. You almost didn't make it." Tears welled in Scarlet's eyes. "I couldn't afford to miss shifts," she whispered. "I've been covering for others, taking extra hours because they cut my schedule last month. No breaks, no sick days. Her voice broke. "I'm a single mom. I can't lose this job." Ethan looked away, his jaw tightening. He had built an empire: numbers, efficiency, profit margins. He'd read reports, monthly outputs, labor costs, but never had he imagined this. He stood, pulled out his phone, and walked to the far side of the room. His voice was low but sharp. "I want every shift log and clock-in record from Holden on my desk within the hour, and tell HR, effective immediately, no employee is allowed to work more than 10 consecutive hours. Full audit of night shift practices. Start now." He hung up and turned back. Scarlet stared at him, confused. He crossed the room and picked up Ella's fallen blanket, gently covering the girl's legs. "You're not going to lose anything," he said quietly. "Not your job, not your daughter." He met Scarlet's eyes. "Not on my watch." By the following Monday, something changed in the way the Holden Corporation operated, and everyone felt it. An internal memo swept through the company like a fresh wind breaking through months, maybe years of silent fatigue. It came from Ethan Caldwell, CEO, with the subject, "Immediate Policy Reforms, Effective Immediately." The reforms included maximum shift length reduced to 10 hours, mandatory breaks every 4 hours, emergency health funds established for on-site incidents, and a dedicated support program launched for single parents, including flexible hours, financial consultation, and in-house child care assistance. Most employees read it twice. Some thought it was a joke, but it wasn't. Supervisors were summoned for retraining. HR representatives were called into weekend meetings, and across the company's network of facilities, whispers turned into cautious smiles. At the center of it all, completely unaware of the storm she had unintentionally set off, Scarlet Morgan sat on her hospital bed. She cradled a cup of lukewarm tea, reading a letter hand-delivered by an assistant from Ethan's office. It was a formal offer, a part-time assistant role at the corporate headquarters with higher pay, shorter hours, and a schedule that allowed her to be with Ella in the mornings and evenings. Scarlet blinked. "Twice," she whispered. "There has to be a mistake." Later that afternoon, she met with Ethan in person in a sleek office with floor-to-ceiling windows and shelves lined with books she couldn't pronounce. Ella sat quietly in a corner chair, legs swinging, drawing cats on sticky notes. Scarlet clutched the job offer like it might vanish. "I'm not qualified for this," she said quietly. "And I still don't understand. Why would someone like you care about someone like me?" Ethan leaned forward, elbows resting on his desk. "Because someone like you matters more than most people I know. His words weren't polished. They didn't sparkle with corporate lingo, but they landed. For the first time in years, Scarlet felt seen. She accepted. Her first day at the office was awkward, intimidating. But Ella, ever the curious explorer, made herself comfortable quickly, especially in the little corner near Ethan's desk, where someone had placed a beanbag chair, a small bookshelf, and a cup filled with colored pencils. "Who did this?" Scarlet asked. The receptionist smiled. "Mr. Caldwell said every guest should feel welcome, especially the tiny ones." Scarlet didn't know what to say. Over the next few weeks, the office slowly adjusted. Scarlet proved herself capable, organized, and quietly sharp. She never asked for attention, never expected kindness, but kindness came anyway. Like the time Ella sneezed 3 times in a row in the hallway, and Ethan, mid-conversation with a board member, gently handed her a tissue and tapped her nose with a mock-serious, "Bless you, ma'am." Or when Ella's shoe came untied on the elevator, and Ethan, without hesitation, knelt and tied it with the precision of someone who had done it 1,000 times before. Or the day Scarlet worked late and Ella sat curled beside her mother's chair. Exhausted, Scarlet leaned over her notes and drifted off mid-sentence. Ethan found her like that an hour later. He didn't wake her. He simply took off his coat, folded it gently, and draped it over her shoulders. Then he dimmed the lights, placed a glass of water on the corner of her desk, and motioned for the cleaning staff to keep quiet. A junior employee passing by saw it all. She didn't say a word, but the way she smiled to herself said everything. In those small, quiet gestures, something began to shift. Not just in the company, not just in Ethan, but in Scarlet, too. She began to smile more, to breathe easier, to look people in the eye again. Ella, of course, now loudly called him Mr. Warmcoat, even in the lobby. Scarlet tried to hush her at first, but Ethan only laughed, his voice deep and warm. "I've been called worse," he said. And when Ella grinned up at him and offered him one of her crayon drawings, a stick figure of a tall man next to a girl in red with the words, "Thank you, Mr. Warmcoat," scribbled in pink, he pinned it on the office board behind his desk right next to the company awards. The snow started falling in quiet, lazy flakes that morning, innocent, almost poetic. But by noon, it had become a full-blown blizzard. Scarlet sat in her corner office, fingers racing over the keyboard. A deadline loomed, and she was determined to get the report right. 2 floors up, Ethan had a crucial investor meeting. On his way, he passed the break room and smiled at Ella, who was seated in a lounge chair with her coloring books and stuffed bear. "Watch her for a bit, will you?" he asked his assistant. "I'll be back in under an hour." "No problem, sir," the woman said warmly, handing Ella a juice box. But things don't always go as planned. A false fire alarm set off flashing lights and sirens. Employees calmly moved toward exits accustomed to practice drills. Amid the confusion, no one noticed Ella quietly slipping away. Clutching her teddy, she whispered, "Where's Mommy?" She said she'd be back. She wandered out of the break room, past empty desks, and down a stairwell. Outside, snow and wind blurred everything. When Scarlet returned, relieved to have finished the report, her heart froze. Ella's chair was empty, the juice box untouched. "Where's my daughter?" Scarlet yelled, panic rising in her throat. The assistant paled. She was just here." But she wasn't. Scarlet dashed through the building, calling Ella's name. Meanwhile, in another room, Ethan was wrapping up his presentation when his phone buzzed. He picked up and his entire demeanor shifted. Seconds later, he was in the lobby. Scarlet was frantic. "She's gone, Ethan. I can't find her. She's not in the building." "She wouldn't just leave," he said, hurrying to the security desk. Then they saw the footage. The camera showed Ella walking out the side door 12 minutes earlier, bundled in her coat and the gray beanie Ethan had given her the week before, hugging her bear. "She was looking for you," Ethan murmured. Scarlet's hands gripped the counter. Her knees nearly gave out. "I'm going after her." Ethan snatched up his coat, then tossed it aside halfway through the revolving doors. Too heavy, too slow. Snow spun around him like smoke as he sprinted into the storm, scanning the sidewalk, scanning the white. "Ella!" he yelled. "Ella, sweetheart, where are you?" Then he saw footprints, small fading ones. He followed them, legs burning, slipping through the alley and around the loading dock. A flicker of red behind a dumpster caught his eye. He rushed forward. There she was, huddled between two walls, trembling and soaked. Her bear was pressed tightly to her chest, her face blotchy with cold. "Mr. Warmcoat," she whimpered. Ethan dropped to his knees. "Oh, sweetheart." He gently scooped her up, pulling her into his arms. Her body was ice cold. He cradled her against him, shielding her from the wind. His voice cracked as he whispered, "You scared me to death, little lady. I thought I lost you." Ella murmured something into his shoulder, and he held her tighter. Moments later, Scarlet came skidding around the corner, slipping on the ice. She saw them and let out a cry, half relief, half heartbreak. She fell to her knees, embracing them both. "I'm so sorry, baby. I'm here now. I'm so sorry." Ella buried her face in Scarlet's scarf. Ethan didn't let go. Around them the storm raged, but in that small corner, the three of them formed a fragile circle of warmth. Later, back inside, they sat wrapped in blankets, sipping cocoa. Ella clung to her bear. Scarlet pressed kisses to her daughter's forehead again and again. Ethan stood nearby, his hair damp with melted snow. His hands shook not from cold, but from what could have been lost. He crouched down beside them, his voice low. "You two, you've become my whole day. My entire damn day," he said, brushing a wet strand of hair from Ella's cheek. "I didn't realize how much until I thought I lost her." Scarlet looked up at him, her eyes full and wide. This wasn't about a job anymore, not about a company, not even about a rescue. It was about connection, real human life-altering connection, and none of them would ever be the same again. Scarlet hadn't expected silence to feel so strange. After everything that happened during the snowstorm, Ethan had insisted she take 2 days off. Paid, he'd added firmly. No debate. She spent the first morning curled up with Ella on the couch, watching cartoons and drinking cocoa. The apartment was small but warm, and for once the constant pressure of survival didn't sit heavy on her chest. Just before noon, there was a knock at the door. Ella opened it and gasped. A delivery man stood holding a large woven basket wrapped in cellophane tied with a silver ribbon. Scarlet opened the tag, her eyes softening as she read the note inside. "Rest. This world needs mothers like you, and girls like Ella need you strong. E.C." Inside were thermal socks, a fleece blanket, storybooks, Scarlet's favorite tea. How did he know? And a new sketchbook for Ella. Ella hugged the books. "Mommy, it smells like Mr. Warmcoat." Scarlet laughed, wiping a tear before Ella could see. Later that day, Ella decided to make something in return. She rummaged through drawers and sat down with cardboard, glitter, and glue, working with fierce determination. By afternoon, she had created a crooked but colorful card. It showed 3 stick figures, one tall, one medium, one small, standing holding hands beneath falling snow. In bright crayon letters it read, "Happy birthday, Mr. Warmcoat. We like you so much." Scarlet smiled. "But it's not his birthday." "I know," Ella whispered, "but maybe he didn't get one. Now he does." The next morning, Scarlet brought the card to Ethan's office. She stood outside his door for a long moment, then knocked. "Come in," he called. She stepped inside, offering the card. "It's from Ella," she said. "And thank you for everything, the basket, the note. It meant more than you know." Ethan took the card with surprising gentleness. His smile was quiet. "How did I get so lucky to meet you two in the snow?" Scarlet looked away, her cheeks warm. "It didn't feel lucky at the time." He placed the card on his desk like it was something delicate. Sometimes the best things start where everything feels wrong. A few days later, the company hosted its annual charity gala in the downtown atrium under a glass ceiling scattered with lights like stars. Scarlet hadn't expected to be invited. She wore a simple blue dress and stayed toward the back. Then the lights dimmed. Ethan walked on stage. Behind him, a large screen lit up showing snow, swirling images of workers, and finally Ella's card, their 3 stick figures enlarged and glowing. Scarlet's heart stopped. Ethan began to speak. I want to tell you about someone," he said, his voice calm but full. "A mother, one who reminded me what leadership means, who reminded this company what humanity looks like." He told their story without names, but everyone understood about the blizzard, about sacrifice, about the quiet strength of people often overlooked. And then he turned toward her. "Scarlet Morgan," he said, reaching out a hand, "would you join me?" Her breath caught. People clapped. She made her way to the stage, her steps unsteady. Ethan gave her space, no pressure, just presence. Scarlet stepped up to the mic, her voice barely steady. "I'm not brave," she began. "I'm just a mom trying to be enough for someone small. And somehow I found someone who made me feel enough too." The room exploded with applause. Ethan stepped forward, not showy, not performative, just steady and kind. He pulled a small white rose pin from his jacket and gently fastened it to the front of her dress. "You deserve to stand tall," he whispered. "Every mother does." And for the first time in her life, Scarlet believed it. The smell of garlic bread drifted through the warm kitchen, mingling with the soft bubbling of spaghetti sauce on the stove. The Caldwell estate, usually echoing with silence, now hummed with something far gentler: laughter, small footsteps, and the clatter of plates. Ethan had insisted it be a simple evening. No suits, no speeches, just dinner, just them. Scarlet looked almost shy as she sat at the kitchen island, her golden hair tied up loosely, sleeves rolled to her elbows. She was tossing a salad while Ella, wearing an apron 3 sizes too big, stirred a pot with exaggerated importance. "Chef Ella," Ethan said with mock seriousness. "How is our sauce coming along?" Ella nodded solemnly. "It's red. That's good, right?" Ethan grinned. "Perfect." Later they sat on the floor in the living room, bowls of spaghetti balanced in their laps, watching old cartoons projected on the wall. Scarlet leaned back against a pillow, barefoot, relaxed in a way Ethan had rarely seen. Ella curled up between them, slurping noodles with a satisfied sigh. When the movie ended, Ella bounded off to the kitchen for more popcorn, her messy braid bouncing behind her. As soon as she was out of earshot, Ethan turned slightly toward Scarlet. His voice, usually so composed in boardrooms, was uncertain now. "I used to think I was too busy for a family," he said quietly. "Too focused, too structured. But now I find myself waiting for your footsteps outside my door." Scarlet's breath caught. She looked at him not with disbelief, but with something softer hope. Her voice was gentle when she replied, "You didn't need to fix our life, Ethan, but somehow you became part of it." He was about to speak again when Ella returned, plopping down into his lap with a small bowl of popcorn. "If we lived here," she said casually, reaching for a kernel, "would I get pancakes every morning?" Scarlet laughed, shaking her head. "Ella!" But Ethan only chuckled, ruffling her hair. "Only if you help me cook." Ella gasped, thrilled by the idea. "Can we make blueberry ones and maybe chocolate chip? And can we have a puppy?" Scarlet gave Ethan a warning glance. He winked. As the laughter faded into a moment of quiet, Ethan stood and walked over to the small storage closet under the stairs. He knelt down, opened it slowly, and pulled out a tiny backpack red with cartoon stars and Ella's name stitched across the front in bright yellow thread. He held it out without a word. Scarlet's hand went to her chest. Ella stared wide-eyed. That's my name." Ethan crouched beside her, his voice low and sincere. "Just in case." He said, "You ever want to stay?" Scarlet blinked rapidly. Her throat tightened with emotion. It wasn't a grand speech, not a fairy tale proposal, just a gesture, thoughtful, intentional, real. Ella hugged the backpack like it was treasure. Then she reached for Ethan's hand and whispered, "Does this mean we belong?" Ethan nodded, his voice thick. "You always did." The fireplace crackled behind them. Outside, the snow had stopped falling. Inside, for the first time in a very long time, it felt like home. The snow had returned that morning, soft but steady, blanketing the world in quiet white. Inside the small apartment, Scarlet and Ella sat cross-legged on the rug, wrapping gifts in reused paper, laughing when the tape stuck to their fingers. Scarlet tucked a golden strand of hair behind her ear and glanced at the window. The falling snow reminded her of a morning not so long ago when her daughter had walked into a storm to find her. The memory still echoed in her heart. Then the doorbell rang. Ella jumped up. Scarlet followed, curious. When she opened the door, a swirl of cold air rushed in along with warmth. Ethan stood there on the stoop, dressed in a dark coat, snow clinging to his shoulders. In one hand he held a red umbrella, in the other a single white envelope. "Hi," he said, his eyes bright. "I was hoping you two weren't too busy tonight." Scarlet blinked. "What's going on?" "There's a small gathering at my place, just a few people who matter." Ella tugged her sleeve. "Can we go, Mommy, please?" Scarlet smiled, her heart fluttering. She nodded. The Caldwell estate glowed from within, yellow lights shining through frost-laced windows. Inside, warmth radiated not just from the fireplace but from how everything was arranged. The room fell quiet when they entered. On every wall, something familiar. Photos, dozens of them. Scarlet helping Ethan fix Ella's scarf. Ella asleep on his shoulder at the office. A blurry shot of the three of them mid-laughter in the park. Scarlet covered her mouth. "You kept these?" Ethan stepped forward, his cheeks pink, not from cold. "I didn't keep them," he said softly. "I collected them. They were the days I started to feel like myself again." The guests, employees, neighbors, his housekeeper all quieted as Ethan raised a glass of cider. "Some people," he began, "walk into your life in the middle of a storm, but they end up becoming your shelter." Scarlet's eyes shimmered. Then Ethan lowered the glass and dropped to one knee. Gasps filled the room. He pulled out a simple silver ring, elegant and unassuming. Looking straight at Scarlet, but speaking to both of them, he said, "You walked into my world with a question, 'Where's my mommy?'" He smiled at Ella. "Today I have a question of my own." He turned back to Scarlet, his voice steady, full of quiet hope. "Will you both let me come home with you every day for the rest of our lives?" Scarlet's hands flew to her face. Tears fell. Ella clapped beside her. "Say yes, Mommy. Please say yes." Scarlet couldn't speak. She just nodded again and again, laughing through tears. Ethan stood, slid the ring onto her finger, then opened his arms. Scarlet stepped into them. So did Ella. Later, after the guests had left, the three of them sat in the back seat of Ethan's SUV parked in front of Scarlet's building. The engine hummed. Snow tapped gently on the windows. Behind them, light spilled from the apartment they had just left, warm, golden, full of memories. But inside the car, the light felt even warmer. Scarlet leaned into Ethan's shoulder. Ella dozed in her lap. Ethan looked at Scarlet and whispered with a smile, "Get in. This time let me take you home." Scarlet turned toward him, her eyes still misty but glowing. "Only if we get pancakes tomorrow." Ethan grinned. "Every morning." The car pulled away slowly, disappearing into the snowy night. Behind them, a home filled with moments that mattered. Ahead of them, something far rarer than wealth belonging.